From all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GBNews.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. It's Dan Wootton tonight with me, Patrick Christie's, and coming up. Despite a last-ditch legal bid to block the government's Rwanda plan, just hours ago, the Court of Appeal judges ruled that tomorrow's first flight can actually go ahead as planned. But just what's so wrong about ensuring people who came here illegally don't get to stay? I'll debate in my digest next. Expect a frank and honest discussion as well next on this issue that you won't find outside of the People's News channel, which turns 1 today. That's right, my superstar panel, Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit Party MEP and political commentator Belinda de Lucy will give us all of their thoughts. That's a proper rock star panel that tonight, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Anyway, away from the court, after protesters in Peckham blocked an immigration van for hours, causing these distressing scenes. Why do these lefty mobs just believe that they can subvert justice and prevent measures of immigration control? Analyst and writer Rakiba Hassan is uncancelled, and that is at 10:40. But breaking tonight, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has controversially tabled new legislation that will allow ministers to override elements of the Northern Ireland Protocol.
We're doing this in a way that protects the EU single market, and we are acting within international law.
So, as the Conservatives continue to grapple with the European Union, might a Labour government led by sleuth Ramona Keith Starmer, so greasy if you shook his hand you'd have to wash it, wouldn't you? Anyway, attempt to overturn Brexit entirely? We'll debate all that at 10 p.m. Plus, as the hard-left RMT rail union prepared to throw this country into chaos during a cost-of-living crisis, should our politicians be calling for bans to industrial action? I don't know where this lot get off. They see a sign of either happiness or crisis, and they try to make the happiness worse, and so did the crisis as well. Anyway, and what caused Andrew Lloyd Webber to receive this frosty reaction at the final night of his own show?
It might have been a costly mistake, but I am proud of what we did.
A costly mistake. Anyway, there we go. I'll be raising the curtain on that in our media buzz at 10:30, but also following reports that Prince Andrew wants his royal status, quote, reinstated, recognised and respected. That's 3 hours. Argue about fourth one. Were Prince Charles and William right to lobby against the Duke of York, making a public comeback at today's Order of the Garter? I'll get your verdict in the clash at 9:25, and duelling tonight will be royal author Lady Colin Campbell, human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, and Lady Diana's wedding dress designer, the wonderful, the fabulous David Emmanuel. Well, after today's news that Keir Starmer is now under investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Committee, I mean, goodness gracious me, you just hate to see it, don't you? What a disappointment, what a letdown that is. Anyway, has the Labour leader's holier-than-thou approach during Partygate been his undoing? I suspect so. Former Conservative Minister Edwina Currie was stunned by today's revelation, and she's tonight's outsider at 9:40. Now, remember these? The freedom convoys. Remember all of those people? Yes, they were kind of driving through Canada, in my opinion, doing very important work and putting little tin pot dictator Justin Trudeau in his place. But they're finally about to have their names cleared, apparently, in a massive blow to, yes, that COVID authoritarian Mr. Trudeau. The Canadian establishments are scrambling to repair the damage of their smear campaign against the truckers, and the Freedom Convoy spokesperson Benjamin Ditcher will update us on that here at 10:15. Don't miss that, it's going to kick off. Plus, amid warnings from leading scientists that the UK is set to be hit by a new COVID wave this month. Oh, sorry, I just fell asleep. A new COVID wave, I've had enough of it. I don't know about you. Anyway, does it still matter if cases are on the rise? No. Positive Professor Karol Sikora offers his expertise at 9:50. Also, you'll get a first look at tomorrow's newspapers as they drop. Quite literally hot off the press here at GB News, the People's Channel. And as ever, I'll crown a new Greatest Briton and a Union Jackass. Oh, by the way, you might be surprised by this evening's Union Jackass, ladies and gentlemen. This is Patrick Christie's right here on Dan Wootton tonight. But first, it's the news with the wonderful Polly Middlehurst.
Patrick, thank you. The top stories tonight on GB News. As you've been hearing, the Foreign Secretary says new proposed legislation overriding parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol does not breach international law. The Northern Ireland Protocol bill, published this evening, is designed to make it easier for goods to flow between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It'll see the creation of green and red channels to differentiate between goods staying in the UK and those crossing the Irish border. It'll also allow businesses selling in Northern Ireland to choose whether they comply with EU standards, UK standards or both. Liz Truss says the plans will solve serious issues in Northern Ireland.
We restore the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. We restore power sharing in Northern Ireland, and that is the priority of the UK government. We're doing this in a way that protects the EU single market, that makes sure they receive information about what goods are crossing the Irish Sea. So we are maintaining the core principles of what we're doing, and we are acting within international law. I'm very willing to negotiate with the EU, but they do have to be willing to change the terms of this agreement, which are causing these very severe problems.
Liz Truss. Well, the new bill will be debated and voted on by Parliament. European Union Vice President Maroš Šefčovič says it puts trade with the EU under pressure.
It is with significant concern that we take note of today's decision by the UK government to table legislation disapplying core elements of the protocol. The protocol provides business operators in Northern Ireland with access to the EU single market for goods. The UK government's approach puts this access and related opportunities at risk.
Well, also in the news today, protesters objecting to government plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda have demonstrated outside the Home Office in London. It comes after the Court of Appeal judges today refused to block a deportation flight taking off tomorrow. The action had been taken by a union representing Border Force staff along with refugee charities. Around 11 migrants will now be deported to Rwanda tomorrow. And lastly, the actor Kevin Spacey will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on Thursday. He's charged with 4 counts of sexual assault against 3 men. The 62-year-old has also been charged with causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent. The Oscar winner previously said he'd voluntarily appear in a British court because he's confident he can prove his innocence. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time to go back to Patrick for Dan Wootton Tonight.
Yes, a very good evening, everybody. Well, in case you've been living on the moon with your fingers in your ears, you will, of course, be aware that today, GB News is 1 year old. Now, we had a bit of a celebratory barbecue last night. I actually couldn't make it, unfortunately, because, as everybody knows, I'm not in favour of a free bar and a load of char-grilled meats. But I, of course, did hear that there was a bit more of karaoke than normal taking place. So I thought, OK, why not have a quick sing-song right now with my panel, Carol Malone, who hates this idea, by the way, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. So from the top, everybody, OK, come on. 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday, dear GBNews. Happy birthday to us. Yes, well done, everybody. Fantastic.
You have to light the candle now. I know for a fact if you do, you're going to be fired.
Yeah, I had quite strong words with our HR earlier about whether or not it was appropriate for me to light a candle in what is quite a flammable studio, and the answer in writing has been no. So there we go. But anyway, look, just a little quick note from me before we get stuck into what is going to be an absolutely brilliant show for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as I fill in for the wonderful Dan Wootton while he takes a well-deserved break. But this time about 18 months ago, I was very much down and out. The pandemic properly had cleaned me out. I lost 3 jobs in a day. I came out of a long-term relationship. I changed cities, and I wasn't really a very happy bunny. And then one day, I got a tap on the shoulder from GB News, and frankly, my life changed forever. And I've never looked back. My day-to-day, for example, saw me wake up, record myself doing a loop-the-loop in an aeroplane, come in and work with a fantastically dedicated team, fill in on a primetime show for the legend of media industry that is Dan Wootton. And, of course, I even got to meet Carol Malone. I mean, you don't get that every day, do you? This office is absolutely mental, and I love it, OK? It's the most diverse newsroom I've ever worked in. It looks like the United Nations out there. There's a rather strong LGBT representation as well. The gender balance is unquestionably on point. But, more importantly, we're really shaking things up. We've helped put the stagnant media landscape into a blender and mix it up. And it was definitely needed, that, wasn't it? And we're not going anywhere, people, OK? But you know what the best thing is? You, that I get to talk to you every day. If you see me out and about in the street, then just come and say hello, as many of you do, actually, because we are a GB News community. We are the People's Channel. And what an absolute pleasure that is. So, yes, if you do see me out and about, then come and shake my hand. It would be great to meet you. Right, well, to matters slightly more serious now, people, let's get cracking with this show. So, it's good news and bad news when it comes to the Rwanda plan. So the Court of Appeal has ruled that the deportation flight scheduled to take place tomorrow can go ahead. Woohoo, OK, that sounds brilliant. This sounds like a great decision, but actually, it's a bit pathetic. Something like 37 people were supposed to be on that flight. Now, that's down to just 8 people. And you know what's going to happen, don't you? You can see it coming an absolute country mile off. All these groups like Amnesty International, Care for Calais, they're going to turn up to the runway, chain themselves to the wheels. We've had it all before, haven't we? We've had it all before where these kind of groups have stopped deportation flights and then subsequently found out that the people on those flights were murderers or rapists, for example. Now, of course, they'd be more than happy for those people to live next door to you, but they probably wouldn't want them sharing a spare room in their own house, would they? We have a democratically elected government with a massive majority, a majority Brexit-backing nation where, apart from the great unwashed blue hair brigade in Peckham or the bleeding heart faux Liberals of Hampstead, they would all like something done about illegal immigration. Excuse me. They, during a cost of living crisis, don't want to have to pay even more tax to house millions of illegal immigrants. Many of them, I imagine, are treated a lot better than some people who've been born and raised here in this country. I actually wonder whether or not some people living in abject poverty, in squalid, mould-infested council flats in this country, would rather be given the option to actually go to Rwanda, for goodness sake. New footage of the accommodation there shows it's got Arabic signage, a table of amenities in the bedroom, so it looks better than my washroom, all double rooms, a prayer room, halal food. I mean, goodness me, if I was fleeing war or torture, I'd kill for something like that, for want of a better phrase. I think the majority of the media outlets are giving too much airtime to a very loud fringe minority of people. It's mob rule. It's weak policing. We had a situation in Scotland where those due for deportation were released because hundreds of people came out to protest. Something similar has just happened in Peckham. Check this video out. The police had just let someone scheduled for deportation go, essentially, and this was the public's reaction. Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Yeah, well, there we go. I mean, you can hear them hissing, can't you? You can hear them being called scum. But obviously, we naturally gave into them. We saw mob rule outside Cineworld Cinemas. You can see it there. You can hear it now in the background if you're on radio. Cineworld Cinemas, where a group of angry male Muslim protesters managed to get a film they didn't like cancelled. We saw outside Batley Grammar School, again, a group of angry male Muslim protesters managed to get a teacher out of a job. As far as I'm aware, he's still in police custody, by the way. Sorry, police protection, I should say. Now, it took us too long to get to grips with Insulate Britain, or Insulate Prison, as I like to call them now, because that's where most of them certainly should be. People were left with life-changing injuries as a result of what they were doing. And now we've got a country that is desperate to get to grips with illegal immigration, but a few people from Islington think this is a terrible idea, so we don't do it. Both the media and people's idiocy is to blame for this. Pretty much every single other media outlet takes a blanket view on asylum seekers or illegal immigrants, that they're all desperate and vulnerable people. But that simply isn't true. The vast majority, in my opinion, are economic migrants, and that should change the narrative on this. That changes everything. If someone knocked on your front door now and asked to come in, but refused to tell you who they were, where they were from, or what their intentions are, you wouldn't let them in, would you? In fact, you probably ask them to leave. So what's wrong with our government trying to do exactly the same thing? Right, well, there we go. Well, that's my views, of course, in the digest. But to respond to that now, you heard a little bit of them before. Some people would say you heard a bit too much of them before, actually, certainly when it came to the singing. But my superstar panel, columnist for the Daily Express, Carol Malone, senior reporter for the newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit Party MEP and political commentator Belinda DeLucy are with us now. Thank you very much, all of you. Great to have you on the show. Well, yeah, so just get your reaction to that, Carol, to start us off.
What, to the Rwandan thing?
To the Rwanda stuff.
Yeah. I mean, this, you wouldn't think it to read some of the newspapers, but this is one of the most popular policies ever among the British people because they want controlled immigration and they feel that their views aren't being heard here. I get very cross with, you've been talking about all these, the people protesting and the lefty lawyers. There's a handful of companies in London, solicitors' firms, that are making multi-millions every year out of legal aid because of stopping these things. And they're making...
like the legal aid as well of defending things like grooming gang members.
Well, yeah, but specifically this, and, they're making almost as much money as the traffickers are. So, the thing is, it makes you wonder, they're facilitating the traffickers in their way. They're working with them in that sense because they want it stopped. And
Benjamin's face looks like a kind of rotten onion at the moment. What's happened? You screwed it up. You screwed it up. You're shaking your head. You're tutting. What's going on?
Well, I mean, it's just a hideous, hateful tripe in that sense.
We're away.
And the truth is, this is a station that's USP is freedom of speech and democracy. And so how you just sat there, both Carol and yourself, Patrick, to say that these people shouldn't have the legal representation, that legal aid shouldn't be used to guarantee rights. You just said even the groomers get them. Well, yeah, because that's how a country with a court system and a democracy works.
But then all too often, my point is we give in to them. So a load of people with blue rinse in Islington or Peckham can dictate our immigration policy.
I think you're confused what a blue rinse is.
Well, I wouldn't know. But...
the truth is that there's no such thing as lefty lawyers. There are just lawyers and laws.
I did a law degree. I did a law degree.
And you know what you talk about with tackling illegal immigration, though you don't know just because they're a man that they haven't been through horrendous torture and a refugee. Those are assumptions that you make.
No, they're
which,
not
frankly, they are assumptions and they are hateful against men.
They're not assumptions. There's a report by the UNHCR about 18 months ago saying 70% are work migrants. The other 30% are the ones...
The EU even agrees with that.
And frankly, that's why...
67% are not genuine asylum seekers.
But that's why you've got the lawyers in the court cases, so you can...
hang on.
Will you let the women speak? But what's it got against women?
What I need to say this because all of a sudden open borders is now what? A centrist, hashtag be kind opinion. Open borders, wanting open borders is an extremist position and a dangerous one. So when you say, we should just let everyone in and anyone who identifies as a refugee, we should just believe them with no documents, tens of thousands of young men, just come on in and the taxpayer will support you. I'm afraid You are a supporter of open borders, which absolutely destroys democracy, absolutely destroys infrastructure. Well, you are. Well, then how?
Don't
all right,
put
then.
words in my mouth.
All right, then, Benjamin.
I said that you shouldn't be flying them off to Rwanda.
Why?
A country
the UN funded.
I know it's your show, but can I ask him something? What is wrong with Rwanda? Tell me.
There's nothing wrong with Rwanda.
So
but
what's
take,
the
for
problem,
example,
then? What is the problem?
When you're well, I'm never going to answer the question at this rate.
Where they're going to be put in Rwanda is far better than most of the detentions.
OK, let him come back.
If they wanted to go to Rwanda, they could. But the point is that you're taking people from this shore, refugees, vulnerable people. You know, there are people, for example, that will have fled many of these countries, if not all of them.
But they arrived on a safe
Jesus
shore.
Christ.
No, oh, Jesus Christ, really. They arrived on a safe shore in
Jesus
France.
Christ.
I'm not sure he came over on a dinghy.
Jesus Christ,
They arrived on a safe shore in France.
OK, Carol, all right, just give me 1 second, babe. Can I ask you, because we are a bit pressed now. Just a quick question. I understand that you believe that anyone should be able to kind of assign their own gender. Do you think anyone should be able to just say that they're a refugee?
Well, it's clear that's why you have a court system. And the great irony of the argument you put forward is somehow that you shouldn't have lawyers and authorities vetting these people. That is what you say. That's why you have court cases to check who is valid.
No, you should,
and
but they go on too long.
There are people that
and
have fled these countries.
Appeal after appeal
people
after
who have
appeal.
fled these countries because they could be killed and abused because of their sexuality, who will get here, and this country will put them on a flight to a country that will kill and abuse them.
No, are you saying that about Rwanda? Oh, my God.
You know nothing about Rwanda.
I know
Clearly.
everything about their gay
It is one of the
policy.
safest countries in Africa now.
Is it legal to be gay?
It is the
Is it legal to be gay?
I've no idea.
No.
I've no idea. So what are they going to go around saying they're gay?
Well, they're not going to send the gay people.
No, the point is that a gay refugee that's come here at risk of their
Well, they won't
lives...
send a gay person, will they?
But they have to say that they're gay in order to try and claim their refugee status here. So then Rwanda will know it when the information is passed.
So they lied about it, did they, to get the
I don't think
refugee?
you heard what I said.
Benjamin,
I
how
said
on
people
earth...
have to make clear their sexuality to claim their refugee status, and then they're being sent to
Belinda's already
Rwanda.
got a word in Edward here, so Belinda, go on.
What is your alternative? A city the size of Newcastle is coming to our tiny island. England is one of the most highly densely populated countries in the world, the highest in Europe, apart from like Malta and Monaco. No, it really is. And you're suggesting a city the size of Newcastle can come over every year because without any documents, they just claim to be gay, Christian, persecuted with no proof whatsoever. We can't. It's not sustainable.
Sheer heartlessness.
It's
and
not. I'm
carelessness.
pro-sanctuary for refugees, for genuine refugees. You're not.
Churchill would be turning in his grave hearing arguments like that.
Awful.
Why did they chuck the papers in the water then? Why don't they have papers when they arrive?
I mean, why do you think people would risk... Why would anybody risk their lives to the extremes that these people do? They're not sitting on the Eurostar like people from Ukraine are. These are people that are risking their lives in boats. Many of them are victims of modern slavery because they don't have the money.
How do you know? Where's your proof?
We know that, and that's why the law was changed by Theresa May, because we know these people are in modern slavery.
Important point, this, people. Important point. We've only got a couple of minutes left on this. Benjamin, I've just had it in my ear now. Being gay is legal in Rwanda.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They make stuff
but they have
up.
huge punishment and abuse of LGBT.
No, what?
Something that's gay. For somebody that's gay. Huge punishment and abuse.
Well, I tell you what.
You tried to tell us it wasn't legal.
Yeah, that happens in the town.
Next week's show, you go to Rwanda and tell them you're a lesbian and see how it goes.
Sue Reid, who was one of the best investigative reporters on the planet, is in Kilgore as we speak, and she says where they're going is fantastic.
Yeah. And there are parts in England that have homophobes in it, and you let people stay here. So it's not... You can't use that and stop making stuff up.
It's an important distinction. Look, I'm not trying to dig you out massively, but I'm saying it is an important distinction, obviously, between saying something's completely illegal and saying it's still not easy to be.
This is a country that we, the United Kingdom, condemned for human rights abuses
30 years ago.
18 months ago.
30 years ago was the war in
this country condemned them because political dissidents were going missing in Rwanda.
Belinda, would you live in Rwanda?
I would. I've seen it. It's beautiful.
Oh,
I want to travel. No, of course I would.
Can I point something out?
It's got the most women in Parliament in the world.
The Guardian, the lefty Guardian, was advertising holidays in Rwanda, saying they do really affordable
Arsenal Football Club is sponsored by Rwanda.
So
why are you comparing? I'd go on holiday to Rwanda. It doesn't mean that I think you should take people on the shore and fly them to a country that they don't get to go to.
When you get there, Ben, why would you go on
holiday? Why are you so
holiday?
full of hate?
Because you just said they kill people for being gay. So I'm saying, why would you go somewhere on holiday where they kill
Because going on holiday as a rich white person, which you are relative to a lot of these countries, is pretty different to someone with no power and no money being dropped in a country where
Ben,
they could
why
be
are borders
killed.
hateful? Why is sending
like that.
You just said you're so full of hate, and all we're saying
because you
is
just sat there and said all these people
every
coming to the
country has
shore
right
are
to
murderers
borders.
and attackers and rapists.
Well, I tell you what,
they're not.
we
They're
didn't
decent
actually.
people.
The truth is, we don't know that.
I've never said that.
Nobody said
It's not
that.
true. No, but OK, there we go. Right, well, as fiery starts, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, if Dan Wootton's watching this in New Zealand. He must be on the first flight back. No, it won't be. Anyway, I'll tell you what, if he comes in a dinghy, they will probably send him to Rwanda. Anyway, are Starmer's own standards too high, even for him? Former Tory Minister Edwina Currie is tonight's outsider, and she's got plenty to say on the Labour leader coming under investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner. That is at 9:40 today. But up first, in the clash, gosh, no room to come up for air tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Should Prince Andrew have his royal titles reinstated? Well, he seems to think so, but William and Charles apparently can't agree, as they reportedly lobbied for him to not make a return to public life today. Was that the right call? Do you think it was? Here to debate is royal author Lady Colin Campbell, human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, and Lady Diana's wedding dress designer, the wonderful David Emmanuel. Let me know what you think, people. You can email dan@gbnews.uk or tweet using the handle @GBNews. There's also a poll up there as well, so you can vote in that now. The results will be coming up after this very short break. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. Temperatures ticking up through the rest of this week. Some strong June sunshine. It's not going to be blue skies everywhere, however, always more cloud across the northwest with a few showers, most particularly across western Scotland, where we'll keep some showers going overnight. A sprinkling of showers over southern Scotland this evening. They'll fade away, so for most it's a dry night, and we should see lengthy clear spells, allowing it actually to turn quite cool across England and Wales. Temperatures down into single figures, but we'll see temperatures rising with the sunshine during tomorrow. Much more sunshine, I suspect, for the bulk of England and Wales. Again, northern Scotland likely to stay fairly cloudy with some rain at times, particularly over the Highlands and the Western Isles. Isolated showers over southern Scotland, Northern Ireland can't be ruled out, but for most it will be a dry day. More sunshine across the heart of the country compared to today, and as a result it'll be a little warmer with temperatures ticking into the low 20s quite widely, maybe 24 across the southeast. Cooler. Temperatures barely getting into the teens in the far northwest with the rain and the fairly strong wind blowing here actually as well. Staying breezy with some more showers in the far northwest through Tuesday night, but elsewhere we'll have again largely clear skies leading to another pretty sunny day on Wednesday. Again fairly cloudy to begin with over northeast Scotland with a few showers here, and we'll keep some rain never too far away from the west coast of Scotland. Odd shower possible during Wednesday in Northern Ireland, but again most places dry, lengthy spells of sunshine and temperatures ticking up further more widely into the mid-20s on Wednesday, perhaps 28 across the southeast. Cooler around some coasts, and again cooler in the far northwest as these weather fronts persist. But further south, the high pressure persists, and actually as it starts to amble to the east, it allows even hotter air to spread northwards. So the heat building, probably peaking on Friday, where temperatures in the southeast likely to exceed 30 degrees.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, and the left fights the right, and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Evening, everybody. Now, Edwina Currie and Carol Sakura are still coming up this hour. But first, it's time for The Clash. So Prince Andrew has reportedly been lobbying the Queen to reinstate his position as a working royal and restore his various stripped titles. And the Duke of York had hoped his appearance at today's Order of the Garter ceremony would be a springboard back into public life. But, unfortunately for him, his brother Prince Charles, along with Prince William, well, they had other plans. So, despite the disgraced Duke's name already being on a leaked order of service, the Prince of Wales and Duke of Cambridge reportedly did some lobbying of their own ahead of the prestigious event. Both senior royals reportedly asked the Queen to keep Andrew away from any public events due to concerns of public backlash, something that Her Majesty seemed to agree with, reportedly telling her former favourite son to stay out of sight for his own good. Sounds a bit like something out of EastEnders, that, doesn't it? But there we go. And while Andrew was still allowed to attend private events today, it seems any chance of a public return has been well and truly scuppered. But were Prince Charles and Prince William right to protest Andrew's attempted return to public life? Or should they back off and allow Andrew to return to his former duties? Let me know what your thoughts are on this by emailing dan@gbnews.uk or tweet us, of course, as loads of you have, at GB News. And while you're there, vote in our Twitter poll as well, and I'll bring you the results of that very shortly. That's also, obviously, on @GB News on Twitter. But first, to duke it out, see what we did there? Yeah? OK, fine. I'm joined by royal author Lady Colin Campbell, human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, and Lady Diana's wedding dress designer David Emmanuel. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming on the show. Lady Colin Campbell, I'll start with you. We're a year old, by the way, today, and I believe you may well have ended up being one of the first guests on Dan Wootton's original show. So it's come full circle, hasn't it? But there we go. Anyway, Lady Colin, do you think that Prince Andrew should have been blocked from attending?
Well, I actually think it's a very difficult and complex matter. And I think he's not been found guilty of anything. And his accuser is a very dubious character. Having said all of that, I get the delicacy of the situation. And I think, actually, the way it was handled today was most likely the most effective way of dealing with it, which was that he was allowed to do the private parts, but he wasn't allowed to join the procession where he would have actually possibly been beaten. And I think it's a delicate matter. And I get why Prince Andrew is pushing, because if he doesn't push now while his mother's alive and able to advance his case, he's going to be toast forever, because Charles and William want him to be toast forever.
OK, well, that's really interesting stuff. I'm going to bring in Peter Tatchell now, human rights campaigner. Peter, your view on the potential return of Prince Andrew, or otherwise the way it's going?
Well, I am no fan of the royals. I think monarchy is incompatible with democracy. But it is true that Prince Andrew has never been convicted of any offence. Having said that, the fact that he paid millions to Virginia Giuffre in order to settle a civil suit does imply guilt, or that he has something to hide. And so I think it is absolutely right that for the sake of the reputation of the royals, he should be nowhere near them. I think Prince Charles and Prince William were absolutely right to say that he should stay away. And if he seeks to come back to the royal family, to resume royal duties, to reinstate his military and other royal titles, which have been stripped from him, I think that would send a very bad signal, not just about the way in which the royal family acts, but of course to women across this country who feel that in all probability he was involved in something shady with Virginia Giuffre.
OK, all right. And David, I'll bring you in now. Diana's wedding dress designer, of course, David Emmanuel. I mean, I suppose some people would say, look, tradition overcomes everything else. It would be tradition to allow Prince Andrew to attend whatever he wants, but is the implication of what he's done so bad, or allegedly done, so bad that he has to just be cast out now?
Of course. He's thick-skinned, he's arrogant, and he should just disappear. We've had enough. I mean, he's been surrounded by scandal. Since he left the Navy, very courageous in the Navy, he came out, and he's just gone from scandal to scandal. Haven't we had enough? Please, look, he was stripped of his titles, HRH, right? Then, after that, he was stripped of his military titles and his royal patronages. So he's not getting the memo, is he? He's not.
Well, he's not.
He's not.
He's not. And that's a really good point, because, Lady Colin, I'll bring you back in here now, Lady Colin Campbell. Now, just because he's maybe paid quite a lot of money for this to go away doesn't mean, really, that it has gone away, and maybe that smacks of the arrogance that the likes of David have just alluded to. And, frankly, as well, a lot of people do refer to Prince Andrew as being a fabulously arrogant man, and I wonder whether or not he's just misunderstood the public mood on this. Your views?
But shall I tell you something? I don't care whether he's arrogant. I actually don't like Freesat, particularly. But that's not the point. The point is whether you like someone or not. If they have a right, they have a right. Prince Andrew has been found guilty of nothing. His accuser is a deeply dubious individual, and they did not pay millions. My information that it was a five-figure sum, and each side had to pay its own costs. You know, I'm sorry, when it's not a popularity contest, he's a human being and he's done nothing illegal. Even if he had done what she said he did, it's perfectly legal. And let's not forget, she was a very sexually experienced 17-year-old, and he was one of the most attractive bachelors on earth, and he was only about 20 years old.
I do suppose that with respect, potentially one of the reasons why she may, or indeed may not, of course, have been a relatively experienced teenager sexually is because not all of it was of her own volition, was it really? But that's some of the allegations. Some of the allegations, anyway, and we have to put that side across. That's important. Human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, I'll bring you back. Now, look, I suppose, on this side of things, how do you feel now about, clearly, you said you don't like the monarchy. I disagree with you on that fundamentally, as I'm sure most of our viewers do, but you are, of course, perfectly entitled to your opinion. How do you feel now that, clearly, this is a rampant division in that royal family, both William and Charles, for once, maybe, united on something, their visceral hatred of one of their own relatives?
Well, it is quite extraordinary that there are reports that Prince William actually threatened that if Andrew was present publicly at the Garter ceremony, that he would withdraw, that he would not attend. Now, that is very high stakes, and there must be some very strong reasons why Prince William would take that stand. Likewise with Prince Charles. We know that Prince Andrew is allegedly the Queen's favourite. She did invite him to a number of events recently, despite the scandal and despite suggestions and advice by courtiers that he should not be present. So quite clear the Queen has been protecting him, but Prince Charles has really bolted out of the hatches and said, no, we're not having it. And I think he's right. You know, we cannot allow a situation to transpire where someone accused of serious sexual crimes and has paid off the accuser to just get away with it. That would be totally wrong. It sends the wrong signal to women all over the country who've been victims of grooming and other predatory behaviour. Yeah, OK, fair enough. David, I'll just throw it back to you. You were very close with Lady Di, and I just wondered whether or not she ever really spoke about Prince Andrew, what she thought of him.
No, not to my recollection. But at the same time, I totally agree with Prince Charles and Prince William. Stop it. It's surrounded by... And it's messy. He would be booed off in the streets of Windsor. It's interesting because I live in Windsor, as you know.
Yeah, yes.
Nobody wants to talk about Prince Andrew and nobody wants to talk about the other one. The one is in America. They just won't talk about it. And that says a lot. That's the people. Now, he's embarrassed himself. He's embarrassed the royal family. And now he's embarrassing the country and the world. So enough. Just go away.
Well, that's part of it. Lady Colin, I'll bring you back in now. And also, can I just say, I think I could hear a little dog yapping in the background there. I'd much rather have the dog on the show than you keep nipping off camera to go and find this dog, OK? So if the dog's there, just get it on. It's all right. We don't mind. We're very pro-dog here at GB News, OK? The people, and indeed Pause's channel. But anyway, there we go. Right, Lady Colin, this is a massive problem for the royal family. The Queen, who we just celebrated this wonderful Platinum Jubilee for, has held this country together like glue for years. And then all of a sudden, right at the end of her reign, you've got the likes of Whinge and Ginge over there in California, and then Prince Andrew, who's doing his best to crawl his way back in. Is there a real risk that we're going to desecrate the Queen's legacy right at the end of her reign?
Well, I actually think that the two situations are completely separate, because Prince Andrew has been attacked by this woman, and Harry and Meghan have been doing the attacking. So the two situations are completely different.
Do you honestly think Prince Andrew's been attacked by this woman? You don't? Do you really think that's what it is, Lady Colin?
Well, of course it is. I mean, you know, there's absolute proof that she has that. But let's not even go there. The fact of the matter is, the proof will emerge that the woman has invented the whole thing.
Oh,
but
no,
well, that's a bold statement.
No. Why did he pay millions of pounds? Millions of dollars? To get away from the scandal, to buy himself out of the scandal.
He's asking, David's asking, if you can't hear him, why did he pay millions of pounds to try to make it all go away then?
My information is that he paid, that the settlement was 5 figures and each side paid their own costs. And they paid their own expenses. Look at the settlement. You know, I mean, I'm sorry.
But then he's an idiot for racking up that much of a legal bill, isn't he?
It's a PR disaster for the royal family. Right, and the more this goes on, the more it taints the whole image of Her Majesty the Queen and the royal family just disappear.
Well, Peter, you've been sitting quite patiently in the middle there for a little while, so I'll throw the final word over to you, please. Do you think that within my lifetime, so I'm 30 years old now, I suppose, maybe unless I rein it in a bit, I won't hit 40, but let's assume I get to the ripe old age of 85, something like that. Do you think the royal family will still exist as we know it?
I certainly think it will not exist as we know it. I think there is great public affection for the Queen, much less public affection for Prince Charles and other royals. Who can say what will happen in the coming decades? But I do think that increasingly people think to themselves, this family has between them £500 million in personal wealth. They have 23 royal palaces, castles and residences. They have over 1,100 servants. This is an extravagance and an indulgence which is incredibly offensive at this time of economic crisis and cost of living crisis. I think people really think there will need to be a change. It can't carry on like this. This is a leftover from feudalism and an age of elitism.
Have they not done much more for this country than you, Peter?
Probably they have, but that's not the point. I'm not seeking
They've done 23 castles worth more, haven't they?
Just think of the revenue that was brought into this country.
David first, then Lady Colin, and then we'll wrap.
Just think of the revenue brought into this country because of the Jubilee celebrations, right? And I'm glad Andrew didn't taint any of that. He kept away, as indeed Prince Harry should really have kept away. I know his family, but the way they behaved, him and the American girl who was like Mrs. Simpson, I can't bear it. Let them stay in America. They wanted to go there. They wanted to earn money. Well, carry on.
All right, OK. Lady Colin, final word to you very quickly, because we've got to wrap. I'm going to get shouted at in a minute.
Is Mr. Tatchell aware that the British monarchy costs less than the American presidency, the French presidency, and the Italian presidency? It costs 58 pence a person per annum.
All right. Well, look, I tell you what is great. We've had 3 people on here who are certainly not afraid to say what they think. And just every single time you think this discussion's ended, someone brings up a point that could spark it all off again. So we'll have to park it there, I'm afraid, people. But I thoroughly Thoroughly enjoyed that, and thank you, all three of you. And Lady Colin, next time, show us your dog, OK? Right, royal author Lady Colin Campbell there, human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, and Lady Diana's wedding dress designer David Emmanuel. Thank you all. Goodness gracious me, that kicked off. You'll have to see. I tell you what, it's been a very feisty first 42 minutes to this show. But who do you agree with? Were Charles and William right to protest and Andrew come back? Well, let's read some of the reaction now, shall we? Ali on Twitter says, it's much too soon. No doubt he's been bending the ear of the poor Queen, but I don't believe the public want to see him back. Once Charles is king, he'll be banished, and he knows it, so he's trying to get in before that happens. I suspect, actually, Ali, you make quite a good point there. I think he's probably looking at this and thinking, if I can get back into the fold now, then Charles would have to actively bin me off again. Whereas if he stays at the periphery, shall we say, to I think put it quite generously, of the royal family, then actually I suppose he knows that when Charles comes in, he'll be even further away. Carl's been on the emails. Prince Andrew should join the illegal migrants on that flight to Rwanda. Good grief, Carl, OK. Let alone love and forgive him. I mean, that would be quite interesting. Maybe we could send Prince Andrew... I tell you what, maybe this is the way to appease people who don't like the Rwanda deal, OK? If we say, we promise you that on that first plane, Prince Andrew will be on it, I reckon everyone will start going, right, well, maybe we could just send that one, right? And then we'll take it after that. I wonder how many legal challenges there would be to Prince Andrew's Rwandan deportation. But anyway, there we go. And Andrew, not the Duke of York, said, although can we verify that? Anyway, and yeah, Andrew from Windsor, Andrew, not the Duke of York, says on Twitter, both Charles and William were right to protest. Andrew has disgraced the royal family and the British public. And, ladies and gentlemen, drumroll, please. That's right, because your verdict is in now. 86% of you agree that the princes were right to protest and Andrew come back. 14% of you say that you think they were wrong. And, hey, there you go. The people have spoken. We are the People's Channel, and the people have been talking, and that's what you've had to say. A whopping 86%. Very rare you get a poll that decisive. Certainly I wish the Brexit one had been, but anyway, there we go. Coming up, should we be worried about the rise in COVID cases? No. Or do we just need to move on? Yes. Our very own positive professor, Carol Sikora, is here to give you a couple of jabs and a booster shot of common sense. There we go. But first, as well, of course, as he comes under investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, will Keir Starmer's holier-than-thou attitude be his undoing? I kind of hope he's a little bit like that snitch at school, right, that dobbed you in for not having your top button done up or something, or running in the corridor, and then all of a sudden he gets caught doing exactly the same thing. But former Conservative Minister Edwina Currie is on our Outsider next. Don't you dare move, people. I'll be back in a tick.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a rip-roaring start to the show, hasn't it? Excuse me, so much so that I've appeared to have lost my voice, but there we go. A lot of people are saying that, of course, we had that debate there about whether or not Prince Andrew should be reinstated into the royal fold, and we could hear there Lady Collins Campbell dog barking in the background. I said, come on, please, next time, make sure that you show us your dog, and people are getting in touch to say, I think it's a blooming good job she doesn't have a cat. But anyway, Carol Sikora and a first look at tomorrow's newspapers are coming up, but former Tory Minister Edwina Currie is tonight's outsider, and surprise, surprise, Mr Rules, Keir Starmer, is paying the price for his holier-than-thou attitude towards Partygate after being subjected to a parliamentary standards probe over concerns about delayed declarations of gifts and payments, etc. Well, the investigation is believed to relate to more than £20,000 worth of entries declared outside of the 28-day window, including Arsenal football match freebies. Ironically, Arsenal, of course, sponsored by Visit Rwanda, but there we are. Book royalties and a ticket to the British Kebab Awards. My gosh, Cormac Keir, Beer Starmer. He loves a takeaway, doesn't he? Well, here's what Starmer had to say today in response to the Parliament's probe.
Well, it's all MPs are made aware if there's any concerns. My office is dealing with it and will be replying in due course.
Are you confident that you've done nothing wrong?
Absolutely confident. There's no problem here.
Well, there we go. A spokesman insisted that Starmer takes his declaration responsibilities very seriously and blamed administrative errors in his office. But after demanding Boris Johnson's head for having a few sandwiches during lockdown, it's not a good look for Starmer, is it, to be subjected to both an official police investigation for his COVID curry antics in Durham and a parliamentary investigation for the goings-on in Westminster. And, OK, I'm hoping that, anyway, we're going to have Edwina Currie right now. Yes, Edwina, are you there? Yes, she is. Yes. There we go. I've interviewed you a few times, and every single time I interview you, you're in a more spectacular room. Your house must be lovely.
Yeah, my house is lovely. It's a 400-year-old cottage.
I'd expect nothing less. I'm angling for an invite, really, Edwina. That's what I'm doing. But let's get stuck into this at the minute with Keir. I mean, has Keir shot himself in the foot here by trying to protect himself as being a bit too perfect?
I think we all had a bit of a giggle when we saw this. I mean, the amounts of money involved are actually quite large, and they do include some serious questions, like the very substantial sum that he has declared for legal advice. What he doesn't say is who the legal advice was to. Now, the whole point, I'm sure you understand this, Patrick, the whole point of having a register of members' interests is not so we can tot up how much money they're all earning, but to see whether they might actually have a conflict of interest, that they might have been paid by somebody who wants them to do or say something in Parliament. And that results in resignations. That's the sort of thing that Owen Paterson was up to. And boy, didn't Keir Starmer make himself available on that. So here's Sir Keir, this gentleman saint, who seems to be hoist by his own petard. In other words, he has set the standards and now he's being judged by them. In many cases, this is a late declaration, but the sums involved are really quite large. That's the thing that caught my eye.
They are, but also on top of that, what would he be saying if Boris Johnson had done the same thing? And Boris Johnson is, I think, quite notoriously quite a chaotic chap. It would be arguably more understandable if Boris Johnson had returned some of these things late or not done it than a bloke who used to be the head of the CPS.
Oh, absolutely. And as I recall, the CPS was pretty delayed in doing everything when he was in charge. That was the subject of many, many complaints. But you're absolutely right. The thing is that Keir Starmer has been pointing the finger at Boris for months and months and months, including back in the late part of 2021 when, as you will recall, Partygate first blew. And he himself at that time was failing to keep to the rules. He was failing to declare quite significant sums of money that he should have been declaring. Now, you do have a bit of a window of time in which to do this, but that window seems to have been missed over and over again. What Keir might say is, oh, it was the fault of somebody in my office. it wasn't my fault.
No.
Hey. But what he was trying to pin on Boris, as you will recall, is he was trying to say that Boris was responsible for everything that happened within 50 yards of him.
Yes, exactly.
But
Wow,
he didn't
good.
fight himself.
Good point, that, actually, because if Boris Johnson was responsible for things that were going on in essentially an office that he happened to live in, whilst he was miles away or sometimes not even necessarily in the same country, then Keir Starmer must be held to account for what was supposedly going on in his own office right next to him by an administrative member of staff. And I suppose, Edwina, some very cynical people would say, well, if he can't run that office, then he can't run a country. But some other people might say, Edwina, and forgive me here, I'm going to be a bit on the nose, does it make him look like a typical lefty? He's always got his hand out.
Well, I'm not sure about that. It makes him look like a po-faced hypocrite, rather. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Edwina, look, thank you very, very much. Edwina Currie there, the wonderful Edwina Currie, in yet another resplendent room in what is a 100-year-old cottage, I've just found out. So fantastic stuff. Edwina, thank you so, so much. Anyway, look, coming up, as the Tories continue to grapple with the Northern Ireland Protocol, should we be concerned that a Labour government could reverse Brexit by the back door? We debate that in the media buzz at 10 p.m. Does a vote for Labour mean a vote for the European Union? The first newspapers are on the way as well. But first, does it matter if COVID cases are there to go back up? It appears there might be an uptick in them. Positive Professor Karol Sikora offers his expertise next on these doomsday warnings.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Yes, now, judging by the sun-kissed scenes across the nation at the weekend, we are indeed mostly back to normal after our lockdown hell. I certainly have now got a rolling pin, basically, of makeup on my face now to cover up the horrific sunburn that I've got. But anyway, despite everyone trying their best to move on from the corona nightmare of the past 2 years, there are still a few neurotic fearmongers out there, aren't there, that just can't let it go. And one of them is Professor Christina Pagel at the University College of London, from the frequently wrong doomsday merchants at Independent Sage, really. Anyway, just when you thought that you'd got rid of her ilk, Pagel she's piped up again, hasn't she? To warn that Britain will see a new crippling COVID wave this month because of 4 Omicron variants that are, quote, all increasing rapidly. Have a day off, honestly. Pagel said, it's not a surprise that we have a new wave we can see in this data. What's happened is that people don't want to look and we're kind of closing our eyes to it. Well, I'm sorry, but I can't remember any time the last time I knew anyone who tested positive for coronavirus anyway. But, Christina, it's not that our eyes are closed to runny noses and sniffles. No, it's that unlike you and your strange virus-obsessed buddies at Independent Sage, we've learnt to live with COVID. We've moved on. And I'm joined, of course, by Carol Zakura. Carol, why don't these COVID hysterics just get over themselves, Carol? Move on. If they want to shackle themselves to their own radiator, let them do it.
It's self-replicating, Patrick. People make a career out of predicting doom and gloom. That's the problem we've got. It's gone. And, if you look at all the data, you look at the summary, every day at 4 o'clock it appears on the government website, the summary of COVID, 128 people on ventilators. That's it.
Yeah.
141,000 beds in the NHS and 128. Most of these people would be on ventilators with or without COVID. They've got other problems with them. That is the key. Yeah. And the trouble is, the power of the epidemiologists, the virologists is all gone now because people have moved on.
People have moved on. And people have moved on. You're absolutely right. We're getting on with our lives, and we have to, and not just because of the cost of living crisis as well. But talk to me about these 4 supposed Omicron variants then. So why don't we have to worry about them?
Because it's not causing serious illness. That's the key. And it's nothing to do with vaccination. The vaccines have waned. I mean, my last vaccine was nearly a year ago when I had
I'm not having another one.
So it's not relevant anymore. It has moved on. And, when you go traveling in the world, different countries are approaching it in different ways. Some are still wanting masks, wanting COVID passes and so on when you go to a restaurant. But here in most of mainland Europe and Britain, we've got rid of it all. So let's just move on. And, what we can't afford are things like cancer, which is my specialty, heart disease, all these things to suffer because of the COVID doom mongers, which, unfortunately, there are those around that do that.
Yeah, there are. And look, Carol, thank you, because I know you've been waiting so long and that was short and sweet, but to be honest with you, you've just hit the nail on the head, right, of the exact topic, exactly what I think the British public wanted to hear, and we really, really appreciate that, Carol. Of course, a regular on this show and indeed this station, and an out-and-out hero. It's nice to see someone sit their head above the parapet of the miserable medical community, isn't it? Anyway, Carol Zakura there, our positive professor. Right, OK, well, look, there's loads... Wow, well, I'll tell you what, that was a very fast-paced hour, wasn't it? And this one is going to be no different. It's 10 p.m. This is Dan Wootton tonight with me, Patrick Christys. And breaking tonight, the woke left's war on the government's Rwanda policy has been thwarted by appeal judges today.
This is about making sure that we break the business model of criminal gangs who are not only risking people's lives, but undermining public confidence in legal migration.
Absolutely, a rare legal triumph, I think. Anyway, wealthy campaigners and liberal lawyers wanted to stop flights taking asylum seekers to Africa, but the first plane will finally take off tomorrow. Whether I'll believe it when I see it. Analyst and writer Rakiba Sands explains basically why this is such a big win for Boris Johnson and why the solutionless left are adding nothing but a whole lot of noise to this debate. He's uncancelled, and that is at 10:40. Meanwhile, other Tory battles rage on as the PM continues to grapple with the Northern Ireland Protocol. So are fears of a Brexit reversal under a Labour government justified? Does a vote for Labour mean a vote for rejoining the European Union? Well, my superstar panel will debate that next. And I tell you what, if it's going to be anything like how they were at the start of the last hour, then I'm going to need a whip to separate this lot. But Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and political commentator Belinda DeLucy will go hammer and tongs yet again, people. OK, plus, can I get a nuke with that? Is that right? Yeah, there we go. Well, Russia's despicable invasion of Ukraine saw corporations like McDonald's quit the country in disgrace. I'll show you how mad bad to know, Vladimir Putin has launched a fake Moscow Mackies to try and cheer up his disillusioned locals. What's the world coming to, eh? That's in our media buzz next. And they're off the rails as Labour Shadow Chancellor refuses to condemn hugely damaging union walkouts. It's almost like they don't really care about you and I, isn't it? They're going to be taking place over the summer, at least they might be doing. Well, should the government get in front of this? Can they ban workers from downing their tools in order to prevent the first general strike in 1 100 years, right now, when we're all skint? Do we really need it? Does the government not have a duty to stop these whinging lefties? Anyway, we'll debate that at 10:30. And honk honk, that's right, I can't believe they made me say that. Canada's Freedom Convoy lifted the veil on Canada's COVID authoritarianism, not least by demanding that banks froze protesters' accounts. It was absolutely shameful, that. But in a blow to Justin Trudeau, Freedom Convoy spokesman Benjamin Ditcher explains to us right here on GB News how the tide of public opinion may be turning after the smear campaign against them. That, ladies and gents, is at 10:15. And, of course, it was the show, wasn't it? The show that gripped the world.
게임을 거부하는 참가자는 탈락으로 처리된다.
Yes, red light, green light, terrifying stuff, wasn't it? Anyway, Squid Game is returning for a second blood-splattered season on Netflix. Get in, that's good news. Are you going to binge it or bin it? We'll take a closer look at the new announcement next. And finally, after bagging a knighthood, that makes my blood boil. After bagging a knighthood, will Tony Blair be honoured as tonight's Greatest Briton or Union Jackass? We'll see. I'll crown my Greatest Briton and Union Jackass before the end of this show. Plus, you'll get a first look at tomorrow's newspapers today. In fact, some of them have just dropped. They're still hot off the press, very much so, actually. And we're going to be giving you that throughout the next hour. But first, it's the news with the wonderful Polly Middlehurst. Take it away, Paul.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening. The headlines on GB News. White House officials say proposed changes to the Northern Ireland Protocol will not delay dialogue on a future US-UK trade deal. That follows the publication of a new bill designed to make it easier for goods to flow between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It's going to see the creation of green and red channels to differentiate between goods staying in the UK and those crossing the Irish border. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says dialogue should continue to resolve the differences.
We recognize there have been challenges over the implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. We urge the UK and the EU to return to talks to resolve these differences. We support a strong and close EU-UK partnership. Transatlantic peace, security, and prosperity are best served by a strong UK, a strong EU, and the closest possible relationship between the two.
Well, that's the American reaction, and here the new bill will be debated and voted on by Parliament. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says despite overriding parts of the protocol, it does not breach international law. Meanwhile, protesters objecting to government plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda have demonstrated outside the Home Office in London. It comes after the Court of Appeal judges refused to block a deportation flight from taking off tomorrow. The action had been taken by a union representing Border Force staff along with refugee charities. Around 11 migrants will now be deported to Rwanda tomorrow. And lastly, the actor Kevin Spacey will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on Thursday, charged with 4 counts of sexual assault against 3 men. The 62-year-old has also been charged with causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent. The Oscar winner previously said he'll voluntarily appear in a British court because he's confident he can prove his innocence. That's all. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time to go back to Patrick for Dan Wootton Tonight.
Evening all, it is 10:06 and it's tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. Well, let's kick off with the very first look at the front pages, hot off the press. And the Eye leads with bishops telling Boris Johnson that migrant flights to Rwanda brings shame on the UK. That's right. So this is after Court of Appeal judges rejected a last-ditch legal attempt by campaigners to ground the plane. And the Metro leads with the first plane taking asylum seekers to Rwanda being given the all-clear by judges. I suspect there's going to be quite a strong theme here with our front pages this evening, ladies and gentlemen. But it is seen as a victory for Priti Patel, but a loss for campaigners. And elsewhere, the paper reports on the Prime Minister's showdown with the EU over the Northern Ireland deal. Well, my superstar panel are back with me. That's right, we not cancelled them after it kicked right off last time. But anyway, there we go. Columnist at Daily Express, Carol Malone, senior reporter for the newspaper as well. Benjamin Butterworth and former Brexit Party MEP and political commentator Belinda DeLucy join me now. What I must say is probably the collectively best-looking panel that this channel's ever had on. So
you say that to all the guests. Tomorrow night, the panel tomorrow.
And the night after, that. But anyway,
it's always a low bar, anyway.
Yeah, it's a low bar, yeah. Anyway, breaking tonight. The UK has published plans to ditch parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol, despite the EU saying the move would break international law. So the controversial bill allows border rules in Northern Ireland to be torn up without the permission of Brussels to make it easier for some goods to flow from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. And Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has been defending the legislation, which is being met with strong opposition, including from Sinn Féin and other Northern Irish parties, who've branded it utterly reckless.
Is so important is we restore the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, we restore power sharing in Northern Ireland, and that is the priority of the UK government. We're doing this in a way that protects the EU single market, that makes sure they receive information about what goods are crossing the Irish Sea. So we are maintaining the core principles of what we're doing, and we are acting within international law.
Well, there we go. Well, tensions are reaching boiling point with the EU, but Boris Johnson today warned them against waging a trade war.
The bureaucratic change that needs to be made, frankly, it's a relatively trivial set of adjustments in the grand scheme of things.
See, the CBI says it could lead to trade wars.
I think that would be a gross overreaction. All we're trying to do is simplify things to remove barriers to trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
There we go. There, Boris Johnson there speaking earlier. And as the Tories grapple with the Northern Ireland Protocol in their determination to get Brexit done, concerns are being raised about the impact a Labour government would have on the hard-fought battle to leave the EU. And a damning new book, The Starmer Project. I imagine it's not exactly a page show. I'll tell you what, the rare ones will be the unsigned ones, won't they? But anyway, The Starmer Project, A Journey to the Right by Oliver Eagleton, yeah, well done, lays the blame for Labour's collapse at the 2019 general election firmly on the door of Keir Starmer, the party's then shadow Brexit secretary. And Eagleton claims that it was Sir Keir Starmer who included the phrase, "No one is ruling out Remain" as an option at the 2018 Labour conference, despite being instructed by Corbyn's office to remove it, resulting in their popularity tanking. So, as the Tories remain committed to delivering on Brexit despite the many roadblocks, would a Labour government and sleuth Ramona Starmer try to reverse the biggest democratic mandate in British history? Well, there we go. And, of course, now not many people have been able to... Oh, no, we're going to bring in the panel straight away. Apologies, everybody. There you go. I was wondering. You've been sitting there diligently, you know, just as I said before, looking beautiful, all of you. And so it's about time. Carol, I'll start with you then on this particular one. So do you think now that a vote for Labour would probably mean a vote for rejoining the European Union?
Oh, completely. I mean, Starmer's already said that he would come to a new arrangement with the EU. You know, and what gets me is, you know, they saw what happened last time when they were flinging towards Remain. They saw what the reaction of the Red Wall was. They saw what the reaction of the Red Wall was in the election when there was an 80-seat majority. And still, they're not listening to the people that they want to vote for them. They want to get the Red Wall voters back. And yet, here is Starmer talking about the EU. You know, the thing is, I think this is a fantastic for Boris, though, because as long as Starmer and all the rest of them, even the ones in the Tory party, keep on talking about rejoining, Boris is going to be able to stay. This will save Boris. If nothing else, this will save him.
That's an interesting one. Benjamin, I'll let you come back on that one, because part of me is inclined to agree, actually. We always bang on about Keir Starmer not really having any policies, and he appears to have one now that is the same one that worked to disastrous effect at the last general election.
Well, I mean, Carol, in a sort of stop-clock moment, made a very good point at the end there. Because
you are so close to a smack button.
Because when Carol says quite rightly that Boris Johnson's best chance of staying in office is to, as I would put it, pretend that Labour wants to rejoin, which it doesn't. And Keir Starmer's been completely clear about that. I mean, whoever Oliver Eagleton is that wrote that book, I mean, he's probably not the best-known writer in his own house. No, I've certainly never heard of him. But that's someone that's clearly trying to absolve Jeremy Corbyn of responsibility. Corbyn is the reason a lot of people didn't vote Labour, because he was abhorrent and useless.
You work for a newspaper, though. Did you not remember, Starmer, the quote, "I am prepared to make a new arrangement with the EU." You can't remember him saying that just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but that's not really the question of rejoining. He's been absolutely clear. He said explicitly throughout his time as leader that he wouldn't rejoin. And the truth is, the question I'd put to the rest of you is that, you know, the audacity, the gall, the gumption to try and blame Labour for Boris Johnson undoing Boris Johnson's deal because Boris Johnson's deal doesn't work.
OK, we'll come back to that, because you were, of course, a Brexit Party MEP, and I dare suggest that you maybe are not over the moon with our current Brexit deal, is that right? So
No.
Are you a bit on the fence about this? Obviously, Keir Starmer says he wants to renegotiate. That means a softer Brexit, no doubt, but you can't be that happy with what we've got now.
No, it was a dog's dinner of a deal. We made that very clear when Boris was championing this oven-ready deal. The Brexit Party were like, it's not oven-ready. It carves up the United Kingdom.
The oven's broken and the meal's off.
The Northern Ireland Protocol was clear at the time, was a horrendous piece of legislation that was going to go against the Good Friday Agreement by changing the constitution of Northern Ireland without consent, etc., etc. The EU, by the way, couldn't give flying flamingo about peace. About peace in Northern Ireland. It was clear when we were in the EU Parliament. They saw Northern Ireland and the border as a stick to bash Brexit Britain with. But my point is this: the reason why it was such a bad deal is because the Remainers in Parliament voted for the Surrender Treaty, which was the Benn Act, which gave Brussels the right to dictate our Brexit terms. But it's true, the Remainers in Parliament colluded. I'm sorry, this is my belief, colluded with the EU to stop Brexit, to overturn it, trusting Labour. Labour said they'd respect the result and then wanted to campaign for Remain in a second. Do not trust Labour with Brexit.
It is no coincidence as well that, you know, what you're saying that Labour doesn't want to rejoin. Yes, it's no coincidence that Mandelson has crawled out of the woodwork. He's told Starmer to be more ambitious.
It's more like he's unzipped himself out of his cocoon, as far as I can tell. But yeah.
Well, he looks like he's in a cocoon. Yeah, and now Tony Blair is getting together. He's having this conference, the future of Britain. This is all good for Boris.
It is good.
I mean, it's just pathetic. You know, I mean, you can believe it all you like. I might believe I'm going to marry Brad Pitt, but it ain't going to be true, is it?
No, I know that's not.
You never know.
We're 12 years. We're 12 years into a Conservative government. You have the Conservative Prime Minister that argued for Brexit and probably won over the important number of people to make it a victory.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. He has an 80-seat majority of Conservatives in Parliament, and yet you sit here and go, oh, it's the EU's fault, it's the Remainers' fault, it's the court's fault, it's Labour's fault, it's the Tory backbenchers' fault. Why doesn't Boris Johnson take responsibility for itself? Will you ever hold them to account?
The question is, will Starmer try and take us back into the EU? That's the question. I'm not blaming
Yes, he will.
And our answer to that is yes, he will.
And Carol, he'll do it. He'll do it by rejoining the EU in all but name.
Yes.
So, like they did, Labour signed the Lisbon Treaty behind our backs, outsourcing a huge amount of our sovereignty without the consent of the people. That is why they are untrustworthy to handle, to be the guardians of our democratic agency.
Well, all three of you just about kept it in check there.
Yeah, I thought we were well behaved last time.
You were. Absolutely. Benjamin, you've come dressed as a ray of sunshine, and you were there, which we love to see. But anyway, now, not many people, of course, have been able to stomach Russia's gross invasion of Ukraine, not least corporations like McDonald's, for example. Well, the burger giant pulled out of Russia in March, but despot leader Vladimir Putin has moved to appease hungry locals by allowing his businessman pal to open a string of fake McDonald's across Moscow. So, obviously, they're named after a ballistic missile. Seriously, he's named the new McDonald's after a ballistic missile, which translates basically as tasty, and that's it in Russian. So, there we are. Anyway, it shares its name with the OTR-21 Tochka-U ballistic missile. Yeah, OK, who knew? Being used by Russian troops to blast Ukrainians. Well, McDonald's iconic golden arches have been stripped from its former Russian restaurants and replaced with a new one featuring 2 French fries and a hamburger emblazoned with a red dot, seemingly, anyway, mimicking a red dot target from a gun. It's all a bit weird and sinister, this, isn't it? Let's be honest with you, but I suppose the whole thing is, in a way. That certainly puts a new twist on the Happy Meal, doesn't it? But there we go. I mean, goodness me, I mean, I wouldn't have been inclined to, I think, any of those. Would you have, anyone here have a of a Big Mac and Nukes?
I thought it was called Big Whack. I was going to say that's an unfortunate name, really. But...
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. Well, anyway, look, we've got to keep it moving. But now, if you are one of the 142 million households that watched the blood-splattered South Korean drama Squid Game, I was one of them and I thought it was absolutely lit. There's good news, yes. It's not just the giant robot that's been playing red light, green light, red light, green light. No, it's Netflix execs too. And they've landed on green light, confirming that a second series is on the way. Well, speaking after the announcement, creator Hwang Dong-hyuk said it took 12 years to bring the first season of Squid Game to life last year, but it took 12 days for Squid Game to become the most popular Netflix series ever. Fair play. Join us once more for a new whole round 2. Well, the beloved Squid Game cast reunited to celebrate the news that Netflix is, I don't know, what is it, FYSEE exhibition, there we go, that'll do, showcasing the streaming platform's Emmy contenders. The mind boggles at what playground games will be given a deadly overhaul this time around, but maybe we'll see a version of hopscotch where you risk getting your leg chopped off or something like that, I don't know. But Anyway, apparently that's all we've got time for this particular section. But coming up, as Labour politicians fail to derail RMT strikes, should we be worried about the potential of the first general strike in 100 years? My superstar panel will be back for that, and I will debate that in the media buzz at 10:30. OK, but next, of course, is justice about to be served for the smeared Freedom Convoy truckers? I certainly hope so. Well, wouldn't that be a blow to COVID authoritarian Justin Trudeau? I'm joined by Freedom Convoy spokesperson Benjamin Ditcher for an update straight after this very, very short break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Evening all. Now, a Canadian bank has apologised for freezing the accounts of the country's Freedom Convoy protesters in February. Canadian truckers courageously fought against their government's COVID tyranny, even as they faced an authoritarian clampdown implemented by the supposed Liberal darling-turned-despot Justin Trudeau. Now, Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act on February 15th to try and put a stop to the anti-vaccine mandate protesters who had stoically decorated Ottawa's Parliament Hill in the name of freedom, and rightly so, in my opinion. Well, the Extraordinary Act was a shameless totalitarian tactic that gave banks the power to monitor and even freeze the accounts of protesters. But I'm not being funny. The fact is that even just because they had the power to do it, it's the fact that they went and then did it, I think, which is even worse. But the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have since confirmed that 257 people had their accounts egregiously frozen. But now, Scotiabank CEO Brian Porter has apologised for the, quotes, frustration and inconvenience caused to the convoy members in an email to its organiser and spokesperson, Benjamin Ditcher. Well, Porter said this: "We can confirm that financial institutions acted quickly to unfreeze accounts after the Royal Canadian Mounted Police notified us that it believes that individuals and entities previously identified are no longer engaged in conduct or activities prohibited under the emergency measures regulations." Absolutely not good enough, because what that literally says, as far as I can see anyway, is that if they were still involved in a freedom convoy, they still have their assets frozen. This isn't really a proper apology, is it? This is basically saying it's a threat, if anything. If you do it again, we'll do it again. And I'm sorry, I think that's bang out of order, but that was, of course, Canadian Freedom Convoy spokesperson Benjamin Ditcher, who's joining us right now, I believe. There he is, in fact. Good stuff, Benjamin. Thank you so, so much. I mean, I'm not Canadian and I'm not a trucker, but I'm absolutely livid, so goodness knows how you must feel.
Yeah, I mean, it was some of the frustrating days of my life, being completely locked out and knowing that our government was trying to target us and starve us. We couldn't buy medicine, couldn't buy food. We had zero access to any sort of financial means of transacting. But at least the bank, I take the approach that at least the bank is making some sort of step in the right direction. The reason this was released now, by the way, is this was sent off in the beginning of March, but I held on to it. And the reason I held on to it is because I knew there was going to be a parliamentary inquiry, which is going on right now. And within the past 2 weeks, during the parliamentary inquiry, you know what the government said? Wasn't us. RCMP wasn't us. It was the government. Everybody's blaming each other.
This is, you know what it was? It was an absolutely epic toddler tantrum from a bloke who, frankly, I think has got some very questionable moral values, a good-looking political chancer who's managed to work his way to the top largely off the back of his own father's previous success, who's had anything completely his own way, his own life, the whole time. And he couldn't handle it, could he? That people didn't agree with him. He couldn't handle it, could he? That people like you were willing to basically go the full Monty and stand up for what you thought was right.
We all know that family very well because of their involvement in Canadian politics for decades. He's a silver spoon child. He's never had to work in his life.
No.
And so he threw a temper tantrum. You know what? Now he's hiding, right? Because now everything is starting to collapse around them, right?
Yeah. Carry on. Sorry, I didn't sort of say. I just think he's such a weak little man.
You're not going to get any disagreement from me here. But the fact is that all of the narratives that the fake news media and the government promulgated, it's all starting to collapse as the opposition is starting to ask questions. And there's no boogeyman with bouncy castles outside that they can say, oh, no, we're scared. So now they have to start answering. And it's a problem for them. One of the initiatives we've done, the next step for the Freedom Convoy, is we've launched this Honking for Freedom initiative, where there are many truckers who require legal aid for defense. And you know what? It's time for us to go on the legal offense.
Absolutely.
Because the only way we're going to get answers is if we have them on the record under oath.
Yeah, absolutely, that's right. But he'll find a way of not doing it. And, you know, as well, he tried to drum up this thing of, I'm fearing for my life. My family is being airlifted out of Ottawa. I would never, ever, ever want to live in a country where my leader fled the capital city, right, during any time of mass crisis. I mean, you didn't see Winston Churchill flee in London during the Blitz, did you? But here we've got Justin Trudeau, a few truckers who are playing ice hockey with their kids in the street, and he legs it.
Like all extremists, they go from totalitarian to victim. As soon as somebody pushes back and starts to ask questions, then all of a sudden they're the victims. And the latest victimology is the fact that, oh, now he has COVID, and he puts on Twitter, but I'm okay. Okay, we don't care if you're okay or not. We care about getting some answers in these inquiries, and we're not getting any. So we're going to keep pushing till we do.
No, exactly. And look, we can argue it's a different conversation for a different time. I mean, Justin Trudeau is presumably one of the world's most vaccinated individuals, and he has COVID more times than I've had hot dinners, and I've had a heck of a lot of hot dinners, as anyone can see. But what's the current situation with the mandate, then?
Well, most of the provincial leaders in Canada got the message real quick during the convoy, and they dropped all their restrictions. But like all extremists, they keep doubling down on the federal level. And I actually just flew into Canada, and we have to have our COVID app, our ArriveCan digital tracking app on our phones. I got a little talking to from one of the customs agents because I selected the wrong thing. And it's absolutely disgusting. And the fact that these people, they cannot realize that the time is up. Even his own party, and during the convoy, I was in communique with a group of MPs in the Liberal Party who wanted to throw Prime Minister Blackface Diversity under the bus. They were embarrassed because he was destroying their legacies. It's a wrecking ball, right?
Yeah.
Well, now, what did he do? He formed an alliance with the even farther left than Communist Party, and he's replaced those backbenchers. But you know what? You can only do that so long, and he's running out of cards to play, which is why all of a sudden he's got COVID and he's got to hide out at wherever he's hiding now.
Well, this is it. I mean, the irony is he's used, in my opinion anyway, he's used COVID to increase totalitarian laws to help get more control of the state. And now he's using COVID to evade justice for what he's done. I mean, basically, COVID is an absolute gift for this guy, isn't it?
Well, remember during the convoy, the first, I believe it was 7 days, if I'm not mistaken, he was also diagnosed with COVID.
Oh, was he?
He couldn't. He had. He had. First, he was he might have had COVID.
Yeah.
Then he didn't have COVID, but was going to isolate just as a precaution.
Yeah.
Then he went on a trip with his. Every day was a different excuse.
I mean, to be fair, if you guys keep up the pressure, then presumably we'll never have to see his face, whatever colour that may be on any day of the week that he decides to make it. But we'll never see his face again because he'll just be so terrified he'll be cowering away. I mean, goodness only knows how long it is before he flees to Nova Scotia or somewhere like that, and he's just hiding away there. But look, can I just say what a pleasure it is to talk to you? And I've spoken to a few representatives of the Freedom Convoy over the course of the last, goodness only knows how long it's been, too long, obviously, but also some people who are kind of, I would say, maybe sympathetic journalists on Twitter as well, and they were banned off Twitter. It wasn't just people part of the convoy at all, it was anyone who was really supporting them, and part of me was waiting for Justin Trudeau to try to reach into my social media life and ban me as well, but there we go. Keep up the good work. I've been fortunate enough to be to your wonderful country twice, and it's a shame to see it being led by such a donkey as it is at the minute, in my view. Anyway, that was Canadian Freedom Convoy spokesperson Benjamin Ditcher. Thank you very much. What do you make of that, ladies and gentlemen? I just think that, in case you couldn't tell, Justin Trudeau winds me right up. OK, anyway, coming up, as Boris and Pretty's Rwanda plan finally gets off the ground with a High Court ruling against woke lawyers, why do the solutionless left think that they can just decide who stays in this country? Analyst and writer Rakiba Hassan explains why this is a big win for the government. That's on Uncancelled at 10:40. But next, as the Labour Party refused to rule out supporting a summer of discontent inflicted on Britain by those pesky unions, should we temporarily ban key industries from striking? I'll debate that with my panel next in the Media Buzz. More papers incoming too, so there's no need to go anywhere.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Right, thank you, lovely lot. Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight in our Media Buzz. More front pages have just dropped. The Guardian, which I've got here in front of me somewhere, there we go. The Guardian writes that the EU are set to fight the UK in court over their bid to scrap Brexit checks. Liz Truss justified the move today under a principle called doctrine of necessity, i.e. that it's necessary, saying that the protocol was causing peril to society and politics in Northern Ireland. We're going to whiz ourselves over to The Independent now. We spoke a bit about this one earlier, but I'm going to revisit it because I think it's quite important. It's on the Rwanda deal. It says that The Independents are obviously leading as well on the EU's threat to take legal action against the UK. That's also, of course, on the eye. But they are also going big on the fact that apparently church bosses as well, bishops. Boris is being bashed by bishops. There's a joke in there somewhere. The church versus Boris Johnson. Bishops tell the PM the Rwanda flight shames the UK. But our Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel, columnist for the Daily Express, Carol Malone, senior reporter for the I newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit Party MEP and political commentator Belinda de Lucy. Right, well, the RMT are threatening to plunge the country into chaos later this month with a 3-day rail strike. And, according to one expert, their actions could trigger the first nationwide general strike in 100 years. So, speaking to the Sun newspaper, Bruce Carr QC, an expert on trade union tactics, gosh, may sound like a spy, doesn't it, warned that you could have a de facto national strike with different unions calling out different industries at the same time. It's not beyond the wit of trade unions. Now, if these strikes go ahead, it could result in blackouts, fuel shortages, and empty supermarket shelves, all, of course, while the country suffers from a terrible cost of living crisis. But so far, Labour have done nothing to deter this strike action, which is hardly surprising, frankly, given that the three main rail unions, the RMT, ASLEF and the TSSA, have donated, get this, £1 million to the party's coffers over the past 5 years, including donations to individual MPs. And the spirit of Corbynism has been plain to see among front benchers, with Shadow Health Secretary and rising star Wes Streeting actively encouraging rail workers to strike this week.
Well, as I say, I prefer they weren't.
You wish they weren't happening, but do you support them?
No, but genuinely, look, put it this way, if I were a member of the RMT and my jobs were at risk like this, then I'd be voting to go on strike and I'd be voting to defend my job's terms and conditions.
There we go. Of course, that was Wes Streeting there, but fortunately he doesn't have to do that because he just earns an absolute wedge plus expenses in Parliament. But anyway, there we go. The Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves was similarly a soft touch this morning as well when she was offered the chance to condemn the RMT.
Would you be voting to go on strike?
Well, they've already had those votes, those decisions made. But it's not too late to avert the strikes. And you know,
no, I'm
not a train driver.
I'm sorry, Rachel Reeves. I'm sorry, Rachel Reeves. I'm going to have to come in on that because that really wasn't a straight answer at all. Would you be voting to go on strike if you were an RMT worker?
Well, look, I want to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sophie. That is the job that I aspire to do. And if I was Chancellor of the Exchequer today, I would be doing everything within my power to avert these strikes.
I think she'd probably go on strike, don't you? Anyway, in contrast, ministers inside number 10, well, they're not pandering to the RMT. That's right, with Transport Secretary Grant Shapps setting out plans to ban striking workers from claiming overtime. Well, a perk they're commonly entitled to when getting rail services back up to speed after a walkout. But are these politicians missing a silver bullet that would resolve the dispute? Well, panel, obviously, given the current economic climate, do they need to introduce a temporary measure that puts a ban on industrial action? Carol, would you ban the strikes?
Yeah, you can't have I would ban any strike that crippled a country. You know, we know that cops can't strike. We know that prison officers can't strike. Nurses have got to deal with the government and they don't strike unless it's going to specifically hurt patients. So I don't see why the rail workers should be allowed to go and strike. And I especially don't see why they're... You know, I actually confronted Mick Lynch on the telly the other day somewhere, just saying to him, you know, you're gonna put the jobs of working people in danger.
Okay.
And he went, that's regrettable, doesn't care about it. But the bottom line is we're talking about RMT workers. Average wage for an RMT worker, 46 grand.
Not bad.
Average wage for a train driver, 54 grand up to 70 grand.
Not bad at all.
And they want an 11% pay rise. Nurses on an average of 31 grand. So do they really think they're worth more than nurses?
All right, OK, Benjamin Butler, you've been shaking your head so hard you're going to give yourself whiplash, lad. What's up?
Well, I mean, doesn't that show the value of being a part of a trade union, that they have decent paying conditions? And, you know, I don't like the idea of a strike. The idea of a general strike is absurd, just because, you know, all of a sudden you do listen to QCs, it seems, just because one of them said there might be a general strike. There's not going to be. But look, you know, you had people like the boss of the Bank of England saying people shouldn't ask for a pay rise. I don't like this idea of the rich and powerful trying to stop regular workers getting together to get a better deal. And if you believe in freedom and democracy, the right to strike is a critical cornerstone of that.
About the rich and powerful getting
People like the boss of the Bank of England, Boris Johnson, the Chancellor, all of them, saying you shouldn't be striking. Well, actually, they're entitled to stand up for their pay.
Belinda, do you think that the government should introduce some form of law that stopped striking during at least maybe the cost of living crisis?
Absolutely. I don't know why they haven't got the spine just to say over the next 24 months, while everyone is suffering, let's not make them suffer anymore by indulging in these people who are paid quite a substantial amount of money. These aren't like the strikers of 100 years ago where they weren't getting paid for what they were doing. They're on good salaries, and it can really destroy people's lives. Let me finish. Suddenly having the transport taken away from them, whether it's going to funerals or birthday parties, or people's lives get trashed by this selfishness. And I don't understand why the Tories don't have more of a backbone about it. I think.
You can never claim to believe in freedom again.
No, I can't. I believe in strike. I think people should have the right to strike. But I'm just saying during a cost of living crisis.
So hang on. If someone earns, I think you said 46k was it, Carol? 46k was the average for them. What about the people, the ticket attendants, which I
That's
suspect...
the average an RMT worker.
I suspect a lot less than that. Would they be allowed to strike?
There has to be another way for them to protest without destroying the country.
So they can complain, but they can't cause any disruption that changes things.
This country has just come through a 2-year pandemic. The government supported the rail workers along with everything else, paid their full wages when they couldn't get to work, and this is how they repay them. And we're in raging inflation, the worst cost of living crisis in decades, and they're talking.
So they probably need the money.
No. I think a nurse probably needs it more who's on 31 average.
I agree.
And the nurses have had a small pay rise. They want an 11% pay rise. It's not going to happen. Then they know it's not going to happen.
I think it's I think they're so hateful towards the Tories at the moment. This isn't really about anything other than just causing problems and hell for the Tories.
Well, is there a concern, Ben, just very quickly, because we're going to have to move on in a second now, but is there a concern, Ben, that actually this isn't going to bring the people with them? People, I suspect, are a bit at breaking point at the moment. A lot of people are. And if they see their lives being made worse by a train driver on 50-odd grand, I think they'll just want robot trains.
I mean, I think if you take London's underground, it probably could be run like that, and I would support that, right? But that's quite different to the question and what has been stated in this debate, which is that you should ban the right to strike. That is not freedom, and that's not democracy.
The country ban the right to strike.
But the point of striking is to cause problems, right? It's like Priti Patel's bill, where she says that you shouldn't be able to cause disruption when you protest. Well, what's the ruddy point?
You're causing problems for the working class people and working people in this country.
Not the government. The government will say...
It's not the rich and the powerful that are going to get hit by this. It's working people that are going to get hit.
Also, is there not a question, just Belinda, last word to you on this one before we definitely really do move on. Is there an argument that if you strike, you may be almost less likely to get what you want because the government would have to be seen to cave into you, wouldn't they? Which makes more strikes more likely. You don't negotiate with terrorists, do you?
No, this is why I think they should just come out and say simply, not on our watch over the next 24 months. We hear what you're saying, let's meet up, but you are This is punishing the people who've been battered already by COVID, and they're not attacking the government. They're attacking hard-working people who need to get to work.
The people in the rail industry I have a problem with are the bosses that are taking huge amounts of money while we're all paying 90 quid to get back to Manchester.
There you go. All right. It's good stuff. You love to see it. Now, Andrew Lloyd Webber, yes, a shift in tone, people. Andrew Lloyd Webber has been savagely booed during the final curtain call of Cinderella after he branded the production a costly mistake. Bit tone-deaf, that, Andrew, ironically, I suppose. The Embattled musical, which had been riddled with COVID delays, finished its run at the Gillian Lynn Theatre in London yesterday after facing heavy criticism for the way some of its workforce had learned of its closure on social media. So Lord Lloyd Webber didn't attend in the flesh, but his letter was read out by the show's director, Lawrence Connor, and it didn't exactly raise the roof. Take a listen to this.
Andrew asked me if I would read a letter that he sent. Now, be nice. I keep thinking if only we had opened 3 months later, we wouldn't have had to postpone our opening twice because of COVID. It might have been a costly mistake, but I am proud of what we did and will forever be grateful to everyone who supported me. All my love, Andrew.
Well, I don't think that man's ever going to work for Lloyd Webber again, is he? But there we go. The theatre boss has since taken to Twitter to clarify his remarks, writing, "I am devastated to have been reported to have said that my beloved production of Cinderella was a, quote, costly mistake. Nothing could be further from the truth, and I'm very sorry if my words have been misunderstood. I adore this production, and I'm incredibly, incredibly proud of Cinderella and everyone who has been involved in our show." Well, there we go. OK, well, indeed. I don't know if any of you watched it. Did you? Anyone go and watch it?
No, that's why it closed.
That's why it closed. That's true. Anyway, OK, well, there we go. Well, look, coming up. Anyway, Sir Tony Blair. Oh, we are. Yeah, there he is. Sir Tony Blair, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that's a joke. But do my panel agree the newsmakers of the day will battle for a title more coveted than a knighthood as I crown today's greatest Briton and Union Jackass? But first, as the Rwanda plan lands a win in the High Court, how do we stop lefty mobs thinking that they can subvert justice and decide who gets to stay in this country? It's not mob rule, is it? Anyway, analyst and writer Akiba San is uncancelled in mere seconds. Right before that is a look at what's coming up in tomorrow's show. Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight with me, Patrick Christys. Is the SNP's rampant nationalism a form of soft tyranny? Spectator writer John Ferry certainly thinks so, and he'll argue why live. Plus, there'll be unfiltered opinion from Darren Grimes, and I'll break down the headlines of the day with my superstar panel, former Daily Star editor Dawn Newsom, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m, right here on GBNews. Yes, well, it's time, ladies and gentlemen, for Uncancelled. Now, yes, this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of cancel culture that's sweeping the rest of the media. Breaking tonight, of course, Court of Appeal judges have rejected a last-ditch bid to stop the first flight taking asylum seekers to Rwanda. Now, it supports a previous High Court decision that argued it was in the, quote, public interest for the government to carry out its policies. Well, 11 people are now expected to be on the flight due to leave tomorrow. 11, it might be 8, who knows? It keeps changing. But anyway, legal challenges from lefty lawyers were predictable. But what's been most revealing, I think, is the way that Liberal critics have sneered at Rwanda, painting the emergent African nation as some kind of hellscape. Anyway, arguing in the Daily Telegraph that such complaints undermine Britain's place in the Commonwealth, social policy analyst and writer, and indeed friend of the show, friend in person as well, Dr. Akiba San. He's been writing, Liberal left bigotry, underpinned by a particularly destructive form of EU fanaticism, threatens to undermine post-Brexit Britain's efforts to cultivate vital security ties with largely non-European associations such as the Commonwealth. He goes on to say, Rwanda is a dynamic and advancing member of the international community in its own right, and it should be treated as such. Well, Rakib also rails against the safe and legal routes argument proposed by some as a solution to the migrant crisis, as one that threatens to dismantle all borders and harm Britain's security. But this is the problem, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? We've hit the nail on the head because left-wing activists don't actually have any realistic solutions. No, they just disrupt and challenge every attempt to solve the problem of illegal immigration, as evidenced by the scenes in Peckham on Saturday, where a man arrested and bailed for immigration offences was released after protesters went to the scene to block enforcement officers. He was suspected of overstaying his visa. But the facts and the law are clearly irrelevant to lefty anarchist mobs like this, who think that they can subvert justice and decide who stays in the country. Well, I'm delighted to say that Rakib joins me now. Rakib, thank you very much. Now, critiques of the Rwanda plan don't actually have any solutions, do they?
Well, I think that's one of the main problems, Patrick. I'll admit that the UK-Rwanda migration partnership, it is a radical course of action and it has come in for criticism. But many of the people criticising the plan, they're unable to provide what I would consider to be security-oriented, pro-cohesion alternatives of their own. And I think that's a very serious problem, and it really weakens the quality of the debate that we're having. Within that subset, you also have people who I would say they've gone on the verge of vilifying Rwanda, if truth be told, and I don't think that's the right way to treat a relatively new member of the Commonwealth since the 1994 civil war, which descended into full-blown genocide. Rwanda has made considerable socioeconomic and socio-political progress.
Yeah, OK. I mean, obviously, I'm going to move on to what Rwanda's like as a nation in a second, but just focusing for now on our nation. And one thing that seems to annoy me and annoy a lot of people is this idea that the government can introduce some form of policy that they've clearly scratched their heads over for years, that the vast majority of people, it passes the pub test, Rakib. I tell you that much, it passes the pub test. You go into any pub up and down the country right now, and there'll be people sitting there saying, I hope this thing works, apart from maybe a couple of pubs around the Islington area, for example. Yet, despite that, we have mob rule, people blocking immigration vans, people banging their drums outside court. Now, some would say, look, we live in a democratic country where we have freedom of expression and the right to protest, and that's all gravy. But what people actually want is to subvert the law, don't they?
Well, I think there's a difference between having the right to protest and then thwarting, thwarting these these forms of illegal immigration. I think that one thing that's very clear is that we continue to have a dysfunctional border security system. In my view, and if we are looking to clamp down on people smuggling enterprises, then the authorities have to be able to do that. And I think the scenes that you showed there, what you're seeing there isn't the right to protest. That's just a fundamental disrespect for authority, and that in itself should not be allowed in a functioning liberal democracy.
No, look, I agree with you personally, and I think it's. You know, I don't think the police have got enough stick for this, frankly, OK? I understand that, OK, people can disagree with the government's laws or whatever, but the police were there to enforce that law, And if it works any other way, if I get done for massive tax fraud, right, and someone thinks, oh, don't do that because I don't want him to get done for that, they'd still prosecute me. I think they're too afraid of being called racist, Rakib.
Well, I think there is a possibility that many of our police forces have been paralysed by the forces of political correctness and identity politics, if truth be told. I think that there's a growing perception that the police is failing to really fulfil its bread and butter responsibilities when it comes to those kind of events. So I think that it's really important that the police in that kind of situation, they take more robust action. Otherwise, public confidence in police forces will only further reduce.
I mean, there were a couple of rainbow helmets away from complete disaster, in my opinion, there. But anyway, just talk to me about Rwanda, OK? I mean, what's your take on it? Because people are saying, well, hang on a second, it's not perfect at all. One of the, I suppose, heroes of that film, Hotel Rwanda, has had what did look to many to be a very dubious trial and now life in prison. So I wouldn't say that it's exactly an absolute bastion and a shining light of human rights, Rakib.
Oh, no, I think I said in my own piece for The Telegraph that it's hardly an oasis of liberal democracy, but neither is this kind of post-apocalyptic hellscape that is being presented by some people who are opposed to the UK-Rwanda partnership. I made the point that it's made significant forms of progress since the 1994 civil war. Interestingly, Rwanda, in my view, probably has one of the most pro-women political systems in the world. I think it has the highest rate of female participation in its parliament. So I think that when you look at Rwanda, the key thing for me is that Britain has to be in the business of establishing those strategically significant ties with emergent African nation states, which tend to be very dynamic economies with a great deal of human potential.
Yeah, I do find it absolutely fascinating that a lot of the people who really were desperate for us to remain in the EU as this, that and the other would have, I suppose, really had a much smaller world outlook than arguably the one that we're trying to create now. But that was social policy analyst and Daily Telegraph columnist, and well, he's a man of a jack of all trades. Is Dr. Akiba Sada. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Always great to have you, mate. We'll have you back on soon. Yeah, thank you very, very much. But for many people, this is the time of the show that they are desperate to see. They tune in just for this. Yes, it's time to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union Jackass. There is some debate on whether or not it's Jackass or Jackass, but we don't have to get stuck into that now. But anyway, with me to reveal theirs, my superstar panel, columnist for the Daily Express, Carol Malone, senior reporter for the I newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit Party MEP and political commentator, Belinda de Lucy. Right, OK, so I believe what happens now is that we go one by one, do we, to reveal your greatest Briton first. So, Carol, who's your greatest Briton apart from me?
Well, you are, obviously, but stick with me on this one. It's all those bonkers Remainer plotters, people including Blair and Starmer and Tobias Ellwood, because as long as they keep slagging off Boris and punting the fact that we should go back into the EU, the longer Boris is going to be in power and the longer we will stay out of the EU.
OK, interesting. So you're actually saying that the greatest Britons are the ones trying to put the mockers on Brexit?
Yes, because they're going to stop us.
OK.
You know,
all right, Benjamin, I'll go with you now.
My greatest Briton is obviously the newly appointed Order of the Garter, Sir Tony Blair. He is the greatest post-war Prime Minister this country has seen, and Her Majesty has honoured him with one of the highest honours, and the Queen doesn't make mistakes, Patrick.
The Queen, well, maybe she has here. Anyway, Belinda, what do you think?
Wow. Oh, my gosh. OK, well, my greatest Britons are a group of schoolgirls from Sandbach High in Cheshire who are campaigning to get school uniforms banned in porn and campaigning against the sexualisation of children. I always knew it was up to the children to beat this stuff.
Well, there we go. Now, OK, well, I mean, I must say I did want to change my mind there because I was going to go... there's no way you're getting Sir... You're just on the wind-up here, Bang. There's no way you're getting Sir Tony in there. But, Belinda, I kind of wanted to go for you because Sandbach actually is... I didn't realise it was a local school to where I grew up. But I didn't, because I didn't realise that quickly enough. So, Carol, you've won the greatest Briton there with the old bonkers Remainer activist. Right, OK, we're going to have to be very quick now. Jackass, rattle it off, Carol.
Right, all those lefty human rights lawyers were making multi-millions out of,
Benjamin.
migrants across the channel.
My Union Jackass is Prince Charles. I might agree with him on Rwanda, but it's not his job to say, and I'll be the only one on the sofa next week because they're both off to Rwanda by the sounds of it.
Oh, here we go. Belinda.
Lovely. Yes, my Jackass is Kim Johnson, Labour MP, who has celebrated the mob trying to stop the police from doing their job and remove an illegal immigrant in Peckham.
Oh, gosh, well, it's a bit of a tough one, isn't it, this time round? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make an unusual choice. I'm going to go for Prince Charles, right? Because not only do I think he should stay out of politics, I'm very concerned about the kind of increasing amount to which he is getting involved in politics. I also think all of those people on the Mall lining there with their Union Jacks, this, that and the other, I'm sorry, but they don't agree with him and he should know which side his bread's buttered. But anyway, thank you very much. I will be back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Actually, in fact, I'll be covering for Dan for 2 weeks, and I'm absolutely over the moon for this, people. We're going to have a lot of laughs along the way. We're going to hit some hard-hitting topics, and at the end of the day, it's a pleasure to be able to just keep the seat warm for the great man himself, Daniel Wootton, who I hope, if you are watching this, Dan, you're having a great time over there in the motherland in New Zealand. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow from 9 p.m. My wonderful panel, Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth, Belinda de Lucy. Now, it's time for headliners. You take care, people.
Hello, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. Temperatures ticking up through the rest of this week. Some strong June sunshine. It's not going to be blue skies everywhere, however, always more cloud across the northwest with a few showers, most particularly across western Scotland, where we'll keep some showers going overnight. A sprinkling of showers over southern Scotland this evening. They'll fade away, so for most it's a dry night and we should see lengthy clear spells, allowing it actually to turn quite cool across England and Wales. Temperatures down into single figures, but we'll see temperatures rising with the sunshine during tomorrow. Much more sunshine, I suspect, for the bulk of England and Wales. Again, northern Scotland likely to stay fairly cloudy with some rain at times, particularly over the Highlands and the Western Isles. Isolated showers over southern Scotland, Northern Ireland can't be ruled out, but for most it will be a dry day. More sunshine across the heart of the country compared to today, and as a result it'll be a little warmer with temperatures ticking into the low 20s quite widely, maybe 24 across the southeast. Cooler. Temperatures barely getting into the teens in the far northwest with the rain and the fairly strong wind blowing here actually as well. Staying breezy with some more showers in the far northwest through Tuesday night, but elsewhere we'll have again largely clear skies leading to another pretty sunny day on Wednesday. Again, fairly cloudy to begin with over northeast Scotland with a few showers here, and we'll keep some rain never too far away from the west coast of Scotland. Odd shower possible during Wednesday in Northern Ireland. But again, most places dry, lengthy spells of sunshine and temperatures ticking up further more widely into the mid-20s on Wednesday, perhaps 28 across the southeast. Cooler around some coasts, and again cooler in the far northwest as these weather fronts persist. But further south, the high pressure persists, and actually as it starts to amble to the east, it allows even hotter air to spread northwards. So the heat building, probably peaking on Friday, where temperatures in the southeast likely to exceed 30 degrees.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m.